It's one of those songs that just will stick in the back of your mind no matter how much time has passed. I mean, we grew up screaming it in our friends' cars. And no, your ears do not deceive you. This does sound different, but before we get into that, let's back up. So let's look back to 2001. At a local Borders, Patrick Stump meets Joe Troman about auditioning to play the drums, which I can just picture so perfectly. Just two buddies chatting over some CDs and daydreaming about how cool their band will be. Somehow, someone gets him to sing at this audition, and that was basically it, which solved one problem. But now they really needed a drummer, a position that would cycle for a couple years until they decided to keep Andy Hurley. It's wild though, because one of the most iconic voices of the era almost spent it behind a kit. The lyrical genius behind all of this, however, is Pete. And Pete's the first one to tell you that he can't really sing. So the guy writing lyrics can't sing, hands him off to a guy who didn't know that he could sing, and in a weird way that sums up the band, but it's the little accidents that make great things work. So you're probably asking yourself, cool man, why are you telling me that? Well, it leads to one of my only rules when creating these tracks, and that is the voice stays. Sure, I could cover it, but that kind of defeats the purpose of being able to enjoy it selfishly myself afterwards, and everything around that voice is what screams 2005, and those are the parts that I want to revive. Cool, so my light died, but let's actually listen to what I'm talking about. I want to be clear, the song is timeless. The performance is great. None of that is the problem. It's the production. That's what's showing its age. Fair warning though, once I do point out some of the stuff, you're not ever going to be able to unhear it. It's just kind of the curse of audio engineering. So let's listen to the guitars first. They're all crammed up in the middle, kind of piled up on the vocal and the snare. Everybody's fighting over the same little spot. The low end feels like it's missing, which was honestly way more common back in the day than not. On a modern record, there's always something pounding on your chest, and here it's not. The drums are very washy, almost like they wanted to make it sound like a watercolor painting. I don't even know how that makes sense, but it does in my head. And the most obvious thing is the record sound of that time. You know when you see an old photograph of your parents holding you and you're like, the 90s, or maybe you're born in the 2000s and it doesn't apply to you? I still hear that in mid 2000s records. You love it, but it's missing that clarity that you see and hear every day. And honestly, it's kind of beautiful in its own way. You hear 2 seconds of it and you know exactly when it's from, but I want it to punch me in the face when it comes up on a playlist. And it's giving me like a pat, so let's go give it some oomph. Sick. Let's dive into the drums. So the 2005 drums are honestly kind of funny to me because the pattern is obviously iconic, but compared to a modern record, it all sounds like it was done in a cardboard box. The cymbals and the snare are kind of washed out, like at least it has that sound to it, and the kick has very little low end. It should just sound more in your face. So the first thing I want to do is make them big and present and keep that energy, give it more body. In order to do that, I'm using the Luke Holland kit from Mixwave, and the kick and the snare will get put in their own MIDI tracks so that I can process them individually. And then the thing I do on basically everything now is there's a more live kick and snare sound hiding underneath it. So for that, I'm using Daniel Bergstrand samples, and it really just gives it a nice real room quality sound. All right, after that, we're gonna add some light saturation. We're gonna beef the kick up a little bit with knock, and then I actually go and do some velocity magic because nothing is going to out you faster than drums that are too perfect. And honestly, volume and panning do a lot of the work, which is kind of a spot that a lot of newer producers overlook. They're always reaching for a plugin. It's not a plugin, it's layering and blending. So let's listen to 2005 and let's check out now. All right, I have to give you some context because clearly Fall Out Boy was not a nobody band in 2005. They already had Take the Steer Grave out, which in the scene was kind of a big deal. Like if you knew, you knew. But Cork Tree was the real jump. This is when they signed to Island. They were working with Neil Avron, the whole thing. And Avron tells a story about the song that I think is really cool. And it's when it came to the chorus, the part that we all sing wrong, it never changed in the studio, not a single time. It showed up in the demo basically done, and they just left it alone. They did rewrite the verses a few times, which to get them right, I understand, and it's impressive because I can't tell you how many times I've scribbled on scratch paper just trying to go through what I'm writing, doubting if it's really what I want, pretty much all the way until I print the song. Well, obviously it worked. The song comes into the Hot 100 all the way down at 93 and then just climbs to number 8. Only 4 years from messing around in a Borders to a top 10 single. All right, let's walk over to the bass. this one's also kind of fun because there technically is bass in the 2005 mix. It's in there. It's just waiting for the guitars to stop playing in the verse so it can be one of the cool kids. Now, the kick and the bass are all crammed into one lane, and it's not a knock on it. Honestly, back then, low end just wasn't a priority. So the bass itself is Grove bass, and that's on the straight DI setting going into parallax. It just gives it a real kind of gnarly character, and that goes through my own little helper chain of Pro Q4, R bass, L2, which I guess is my secret sauce at this point. Underneath all of that, I've got Serum running a Reese bass just to lay a really solid 2026 floor, like a sub, that part that you feel in your chest more than you hear. That whole bass group is sidechained to the kick. So every time the kick lands, the bass slides out of its way for a second and just makes it so that they're never fighting and they're just two siblings that need to take turns. The dude's been in witness protection for 20 years. Welcome back. 2 down, big one's still coming. Back then, making a record like this meant a real room. They cut cork tree at this place in Burbank called Ocean Studios, which, fun fact, used to be a car dealership. Does that matter? Not really. Does it explain the sound? Not even a little. But it was a big deal back then. Real amps, a real budget, months of some producer's time, a room that probably cost more than my car. And while the studio is iconic for a lot of reasons, what that room sounded like at the time had a lot to do with what the record sounded like. And now I'm doing all this in my home studio. What you used to need a full studio of gear and knowledge to accomplish is basically now just stripped down to just the knowledge. We have amp sims that genuinely nailed guitar tones, samples that back up every drum hit, and the low end went from an afterthought to a main character. A modern record is something you sonically feel now, and you don't just hear it, which brings us to the guitars. All right, the wall. This part I'm actually really excited to show you guys. Back in 2005, they ran one guitar left and one guitar on the right and called it big. Makes sense, right? I mean, that's how it was played on stage. That's how people had done it since recording came around. And for the time, genuinely, it was big. But now we go way bigger. It's easier and way cheaper to do. So I always track 2 guitars minimum per side, 4 total, hard left and right. So the whole thing kind of wraps around your head. The first pair is running Neural DSP's Nolly, which that's where all the tightness and plucky definitions come from. The second pair is on Gojira, and that's the one that's down with the thickness, if you feel me. They all run the same chain, Pro Q4 for the EQ, Oxford Inflator, Ren X, Gullfoss, a touch of 7th Heaven for space, and then the whole guitar bus gets glued together so it hits like one big angry truck, instead of 4 guys staring at each other awkwardly during their girlfriend's brunch. Oh, and I probably should have mentioned the whole song's tuned down a step now from drop D to drop C, because we get low in 2026. Thanks, Lil Jon. So here's theirs. And here's mine. I mean, they had a fence. It was just a really nice fence. All right, real quick before we get to the best part, one thing that I love about this era is the misheard lyrics. And this song is absolutely no exception. Nobody knew the words. Nobody. 20 years later, and people are still in the comments fighting about what he's been saying. And I kind of love that. It's not a flaw. It's a rite of passage. Mine was, and I'm going to defend that to my grave. Yeah, drop yours in the comments. I know you've got one. Don't lie to me. Now you're just about to hear your misheard lyrics in a lower key. All right, let's actually hear it. You remember that chorus? You know all the wrong words. And there's a bonus thing to listen for. When the chorus hits, there's a synth pad I tucked under all those harmony like whoa-ohs. You won't really hear it very well, but you'll feel them get a little thicker, like just bigger. So see if you can catch it. So honestly, doing this is my favorite thing in the world. It's not just about the nostalgia for me, it's the production gap. The space between something that sounds like it could be better, like a demo, and something that actually sounds like a big record. And I think a lot of you have a song like that. It's done, the performance is there, you love it. It just doesn't sound the way it does in your head yet. If you have one of those sitting in a folder somewhere, please send it my way. Or at least hang out with us in the Discord first. Throw it in, get some ears on it with zero pressure. And look, the next record's already picked, but the one after that is one I want to come from you guys. So please let me know in the comments which song I should do. And I'm really glad you guys are here. Cheers.